Thanks for joining us on a road trip through rabbinic narrative. No agenda, just clarity. So we recently took up an interesting Midrash that's very popular, that many of us have learned before, and I think most of us have the same interpretation of it. It's referring to the Midrash about the mirrors that were donated by the women to the Mishkan. Moshe didn't want them because they're used for the yetzer hara, and Hashem said, no, take them because they were actually used for something good. Most interpretations or explanations have to do with just the general idea of whether or not something that can be used for taiva and yetzer hara can also be used for good. But the problem with this explanation is that it's way too generic, seems very obvious, and it begs the question, why do we have to learn this lesson now? There's so many other places in the Torah that could have referred to this. So we wanted to take another look at this Midrash and see if we can uncover something a little deeper, a little more pertinent. The Midrash is found in Shemos Perek Lamed Ches, Pasuk Ches, where it's referring to the copper kior, right, the wash basin, and it was made out of maros hatzovaos, out of mirrors hatzovaos. I think that's probably the term that the Midrash is going off of. And Rashi quotes the Midrash saying like this: "Benos Yisrael hayu biyadon maros sheroos behen kashem miskashtos." So the women had mirrors that they would look into when they would adorn themselves with makeup and things like that. And they didn't hold themselves back from bringing those to the Mishkan, which is a praise to them. However, Moshe was disgusted with them because they're made for the yetzer hara. Notice the language of disgusted. It seems to be pretty extreme, severe language. And it doesn't say that Moshe said anything with them. It just said that he was Moes. And Midrash continues, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaba. So Hashem says to him, no, except these, because these are more beloved to me than anything. Also seems to be pretty extreme. There's the wordplay, that through them the women were able to establish many legions of people, meaning, or what, when the husbands were exhausted from backbreaking labor, they would go to them and they would escort them home with food and with drink. So while they were feeding them, they would take the mirrors, and they would hold them out and look in the mirror with their husband, and they would flirt with them. Right, I'm more beautiful than you. And they would get involved in some kind of flirtatious activity. This, they would bring their husbands to be aroused to be with them, and they would be with them and pregnant and v'yoldoshem, and then they would have kids. Or articha. And that's what it's referring to, the maros hatzovos. Okay, v'nasa kior mehem, and so the kior, wash basin, was made from them, shu lasum shalom ben ish l'ishto, because it was designed to make peace between a husband and his wife, because it was used in the process, in the procedure known as sota, and it would help clarify whether or not there was some wrongdoing on the part of the woman, so that the relationship between husband and wife could be reestablished. So it's a very nice Midrash, but we have a couple of problems with it. First of all, when did this happen? How do we know about this happening? Did Moshe know about this? Is it something that Hashem is just telling to Moshe now? We don't have any record of this going on in the actual text in the Psukim. So this is just a Midrash story. But assuming all this is true and all that's happened, what is actually machlokas between Moshe and Hashem here? First of all, why does Moshe have such an extreme reaction? It's one thing to say, no, I don't want these because they don't belong here. But to say that it's like he's disgusted by them seems to indicate something much more fundamental, much deeper. And then what's Hashem's response? Again, to say that, no, it's okay, they can be used is one thing. To say that they're more beloved to me, it sounds like Hashem's telling Moshe that these actually hit to the point of what's going on here. So in what way is that the case? So our first move was to get away from this whole concept that there's actual conversation going on between Moshe and Hashem here. But rather, we wanted to say that Moshe is emblematic or representative of a certain point of view, and Hashem is coming along with another point of view to teach something else that you wouldn't necessarily have known or you wouldn't necessarily have thought. So the question becomes, so what is this point of view? What is it that Moshe, or the personality of Moshe, would find so appalling by these mirrors? and then what is it that Hashem is coming to show him where he's off base? So one of the problems we have with the typical explanation about this just being an issue about yetzer hara, things like that, is that it's very too generic, right? That can be just pretty much talking about anything. But here we're talking about the Mishkan, and the Midrash is going off of something related to Mishkan per se. So we want to see if we can hone this concept down and localize it more to Mishkan. So what would that be? So here's where we wanted to step in and say the following, right? The Mishkan is V'asulu mikdash v'shechanti v'socha. Like the Mishkan is a place for Hashras Hashchina. It's a place for Klal Yisrael to go and encounter Hashem, so to speak. You might think that because this is the place for Hashras Hashchina, it's not really relevant to everyday life, what the things that you use in everyday life, what's going on in your everyday life. It's a very special place. It's a very unique place. And it should be reft of anything that would indicate things that might reflect the lowliness of a person, or things that he might do wrong, or things that he could use to do things wrong, right? It needs to be a very special place. And Moshe is actually perfectly emblematic of that, because Moshe is like the highest level person. So he's not going to relate to this kind of stuff, the flirtation going on between a husband and wife. I mean, what does that have to do with a makom hashras hashchina? If anything, get that out of here. That doesn't belong here, right? That's the meat. Is that if you view the Mishkan as a very special place that's purely designated to reflect the hashras hashchina, and not be involved and not incorporate like the daily, the more mundane activities that people are involved in. Certainly something like the activity between a husband and wife in the bedroom. So of course, get out of here. That doesn't belong here. If anything, it's disgusting. It has no place here, right? But that point of view is actually wrong. And that's what it means that Hashem is coming to correct. The Mishkan is not essentially a place for Hashras Hashchina. That's not what the Mishkan's about. God doesn't need that, right? Rather, it's a place for the people, right? The people need the Mishkan. The people need to have a place to focus on and a place to go and encounter the Shekhinah for themselves. But the thing is that because it's for the people, it's a place that needs to be constructed by the people, and it has to reflect the people, and it should have things in it that the people use and relate to. And those things are what should be brought into the Mishkan and what the Mishkan should reflect. And I think that's what Hashem is saying, Chavivim Laim and Akol. It's not just that, no, you're wrong, that it can be used for the good. But no, that's exactly the point. The point is that they should take things that they use in their lives, in their mundane lives, in order to accomplish higher level things. So for example, even the flirtation of a husband and wife in the right situation with the intention of establishing the nation and the continuity of the Am, that's an amazing idea. That hits right at the point. That is the kind of thing that Hashem wants you to have in the Mishkan, because the Mishkan is a place for the people and it should reflect the people. And that's the lesson that so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving here, is that don't view the mistake is that you view the Mishkan or the Mikdash or any of these places as very special places, totally bereft of the mundane activities of man. And when he goes to encounter God, he has to leave everything behind, all the little stuff, and just focus on these lofty ideals. And that's where Moshe was coming from. But Hashem is saying, no, that's not what Mishkan's about. Mishkan is really a place for the people to encounter the Shekhinah, but not people as fake people psyching themselves out or trying to go into some area of thought that's bereft of what their everyday life is about. But no, it's everyday people who are living everyday lives, who want to go and encounter Hashem in the Mishkan. That's what it's there for, and therefore the construction of it and the object in it should reflect that. What does this have to do with Sota? It seems a little bit of a stretch, right? The kior was really there for Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim of the Kohanim. It happened to be something that was used in the process of Sota, but to say that was the main function seems to be a little of a stretch. But we think that in this particular case, if we're changing the shift and the view of what the Mishkan is, it actually makes a great point, right? Which is that the Mishkan is really about the relationship between a person and Hashem. But it's a relationship between the person and Hashem, okay? And it's the person that Hashem actually wants. Now, it reminds us of an adage that says charity starts at home, meaning to say, if your relationships at home, if your nuclear relationships are a mess, so then it's a complete distortion to go and start building a relationship with God, right? That's not what Hashem wants. Hashem doesn't want that person. He wants the person who has good relationships at home, that works on his relationships at home, that values his relationships at home. And that person is the one who should go and approach Hashem and establish a relationship with him. So we think that's what the Midrash is referring to, that it's just using Sota as an example of the fact that Mishkan is really not about like God, a place for God. It's really a place for people to come and encounter God and be inspired there, but people as people, right? Not people as idealistic fake outs, but people, as real people with real relationships, should go and have a place to encounter and focus on Hashem. So, in the course of looking through this Midrash, I think we were able to address the problem of how generic the typical answer was, maybe even superficial, and really honed it into the idea of Mishkan and how essential that idea is. That Mishkan is really a place for the people, by the people, as regular people.